Spooky Tuesday.
Eat shit and die, Ricky.
Eat shit and live, Bill.
Hey guys, welcome back to Spooky Tuesday, a weekly podcast where we're breaking down all our favorite slashers, thrillers, monster movies, and black comedies on the new scariest day of the week. I'm Sydney Thompson.
I'm Monica Height.
And I'm Chelsea Duff.
And this week, we are talking about the 1983 Sleepaway Camp, which I feel is a slept on horror movie.
Damn.
To start your episode off.
But
I loved it. Yeah, I mean, it's like a cult classic, right? But I hadn't heard about it until you told me about it, Sydney. And now that I've heard about it and seen it, it's all I can think about. It's really haunting me.
This movie, it's very interesting because it came out 3 years after Friday the 13th, which is maybe the most famous camp horror movie. But this is nothing like Friday the 13th, except for there is murders at a camp.
Yeah.
Okay, I mean, yeah. And then,
also, I think they're both set in New Jersey, but like other than that.
They are.
I didn't realize that part. This movie is certainly more Joyzy than Friday the 13th.
The beginning with the little kids. Like, honestly, I don't know why. I am sure there are small children out there who have really strong, thick New Jersey accents because that. Of course there are. That just makes sense. But it seems dialect. Like fake. Like my brain doesn't understand it. Like it seems like there must be some adult New Yorkers out there, adult New Jerseyans out there who are like dubbing it in, being like, "Peter started it." Like I don't know what I don't.
That's just how it is.
Compute in my brain that small children. Too stuck in my own perspective, I guess. My little California coastal elite, whatever. New Jersey's also, whatever. Yeah, different coast.
New Jerseyans are probably like, oh my God, I can't believe that baby from the San Fernando Valley is already like, oh my God, Mom, can you
little
get
babimes out there like
from the juice store?
Whatever. Yeah.
Like already at 5 years old. So it's the same thing.
I'm sure it is.
For those who haven't seen this movie, the IMDb summary, which isn't as good as the summary for when you watch it on whatever streaming platform.
Oh, do you want me to pull it up?
Yes, because
and read it off
you have to read that one because I'll read this one, but that one was so much better. So this one, the IMDb summary is: Angela Baker, a shy, traumatized young girl, is sent to summer camp with her cousin. Shortly after her arrival, everyone with sinister or less than honorable intentions toward her gets their comeuppance.
I like that it has the word comeuppance in it, though.
That is a great word.
I've never seen that word written. And so I was like, this is an interesting word. But the one I remember just like dying laughing at the description of this movie for when we watched it. I was like, this isn't real. This is amazing.
What was it, Chelsea? Where did we watch this, by the way? Just for the listeners back home.
It's on Peacock right now.
Bunks. Yes,
wait. I got it for you. Bunks in the showers are a mad stabber's beat at a summer camp strictly for teens.
Yes!
I don't know why it's so fucking funny, actually, to be like, it's a mad stabber's beat at a summer camp strictly for teens.
A mad stabber's beat is
a mad stabber's beat. Gorgeous.
That's what my tramp stamp is gonna say. Mad stabber's beat.
Yes, I think we made that joke actually when we all watched this together when Sydney was in LA. I think we were like, you have to get this description tattooed on your body.
Yeah. Of course.
I love it.
I mean, it just makes sense. It's beautiful poetry, and so it makes sense.
I love a good spooky tattoo. You know that. You know, I will add to my collection. I have no be like, sure, a stupid tattoo, put it on my body.
What if my first tattoo that I ever get is Mad Stabber's beat as a tramp stamp?
I absolutely think you should, not a tramp stamp, but just like on one butt cheek. You know what I mean?
I could have it like written around like a knife, a stabby knife, or I could get the I could get the classic gorgeous poster image on my ass too, which is just like an Adidas shoe that is soaking wet with water, not blood, being stabbed. And then the shoe, I guess, is bleeding, or it's just a previously bloody. It doesn't make a lot of logistical sense here. Either the shoe is sentient and it is bleeding, or someone stabbed someone and then stabbed the shoe. Either way, it's beautiful art. It's really stunning. I think it would look great on one of my ass cheeks as a tattoo. So
if you are in or around Burbank, which both of you two are, the Mystic Museum, like on Magnolia, is having like a camp little like horror thing in their store.
When you say camp, do you mean like camp or do you mean like
no, I mean like camp,
like summer camp,
like sleepaway camp, you know, like, and so
cool.
Yeah, it's called Camp Horror. That's the name of the exhibit.
And they have the giant shoe with the knife sticking out of it.
Yeah, no, Chelsea, I texted you and I was like, we need to go over to this. I think Sydney, when you were over there, it wasn't open quite yet. They just had like the ad stuff up, but in the last week it's opened up. And...
No, I went in.
Oh, you went in?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, okay.
How do you think she saw the giant shoe, Monica? Wow.
I looked it up and it said it wasn't open yet. But anyway, Sydney got an exclusive preview.
Can you believe somebody would put lies on the internet?
Yeah,
no, but
everything online is real.
That's true. If you guys are in LA and you haven't been to the Mystic Museum, it's called the Bearded Ladies Mystic Museum, just to give you the full name. It's fucking
Google.
Awesome. I've been there to one of their exhibits before for Evil Dead, and it was like really, really, really well done. So I can only imagine what they did for this one. And I'm on their website right now, and the merch is fucking fuego. So we got to go buy some shit. They also just sell great spooky stuff all year round, and they have a lot of taxidermy. Exciting, interesting taxidermy.
This is not an ad for the Mystic Museum. We just love spooky and taxidermy, and they just happen. I was just there, and it's very close to Monica and Chelsea. So shout out to the Mystic Museum in Burbank.
Oh yeah,
this is not an ad, but if they wanted to give us money, they should feel free. They should feel free. Actually, I think it would make them feel good if they wanted to do that. You know what I mean? I think it might be restorative. I think it might be healthy. I think it might be affirming. You know what I mean? I think they should consider it.
It's something
for their own
would
sake.
Be really good. And also, I just want to let you all know that they are selling a taxidermied Pennywise that is a rat dressed up as a clown that has the Pennywise makeup on it, and it's inside of like a gumball machine type shaped thing. And also they're selling a Friday the 13th Welcome to Camp Blood clock.
Okay, but I want the taxidermy Pennywise rat for my birthday. So make a mental note of that, you two. My birthday is the week before Halloween.
If they give us money, maybe I'll have the funds to do this for you. Who knows?
But yeah, see, everybody's got Sleepaway Camp or Friday the 13th on their mind. Right now, we're recording this on Saturday the 14th. So yesterday was Friday the 13th. Incredibly spooky day. Wow, just horrifying. No, it was fine. But I mean, say what you will about, a lot of people say that Sleepaway Camp is like a ripoff of Friday the 13th, which like, yeah, it is. It totally is. But for me personally, I liked this movie, besides some parts of it, more than I liked Friday the 13th, because it gave me more blood and better kills. Because I think I said this in our Friday the 13th episode, but I was kind of bored in the middle of that movie. Because there's just so much downtime, and it was also just pitch black the entire movie. So I was like, I can't fucking see what's going on. I can't see a goddamn thing, and nothing's happening anyway. This movie, though, a lot of fucking shit happens. A lot of shit happens. Maybe too much shit happens.
There are still some scenes that are in there and you're like, but why? Like, there is an extended baseball scene, you know what I mean?
Oh my God.
There's a lot of just like, kids being kids, doing some pranks, you know what I mean?
But I think that's what makes this movie so charming. So charming.
The artistic choices that they made that make no sense. Like what were we saying because we watched this all together? And it's only an hour and 25 minutes long. It's like really fucking short. And like we were joking throughout the movie where like it's only an hour and 25 minutes long and 25 of those minutes are a baseball scene and 15 of those minutes are the pervy cook screaming in agony on the ground. Like,
oh yeah, there's like 5 minutes of like ah! And then there's 5 minutes later of Mel, the camp director, being like, liar! And like, there's so many like long, repetitive shots that are extended for no real reason other than not camp, the camp of it all. You know what I mean? And it is iconic and it is gorgeous.
Yeah. Or maybe they just didn't have enough other stuff in the movie. And so they're like, fuck, we got to make this. The movie's only going to be an hour long if we don't add 20 minutes of baseball.
Maybe that is the case, but I can tell you from another movie that we have not covered on the podcast, but we did watch with our spooky crew, that if your film is not quite feature length, you just add in some slow-mo shots until it pushes you right over the edge.
That always
and that's
works.
What they did in The Haunting of Sharon Tate.
Oh my god. Yeah, they should have just made that one.
That movie, we'll talk about it another time, but my god.
This movie I love because like it is like actual camp a little bit, like camp. And a lot of people say this movie is bad, and it is. Don't get me wrong.
Sure is, but it like some bad is good.
The writing isn't great. The plot is questionable. You know,
the acting from many a character.
The acting is
what are you talking
a
about?
Choice. But here's the thing. I love this movie because they specifically wanted like kids to play kids in this movie. So like all the actors are at least teenagers. They're not like 22 or 25-year-olds playing teenagers. Angela, our main girl, like she's a 13-year-old actress. Ricky is 17 when they film this, even though he looks like he's 15. He's actually 17.
Wow.
I know. It's insane.
That's
like
shocking.
It truly is, because he looks like a little baby.
A 12-year-old boy to me.
He just looks like a sweet little babe, but he's, you know, like 17. But like they were all, you know, unknown actors. They didn't do anything before this. You know, they didn't do much after this. I don't know, like the fact that they are age appropriate and unknown like actors, to me truly, again, this movie is so charming, even though it is very problematic and very not good. It's cheesy and it's charming, and you have a good time watching it.
Oh yeah.
The deaths are fun.
It was a fucking riot. Okay, I know that you said that the unknown cast adds to it, and I totally agree. Said if Jane Krakowski had played I would have fucking died. That would have been incredible. She would have slayed in that role. Not that the girl who was Judy didn't do a great job. She just happened to look like she was much, much, much older than any of her love interests, and it was very confusing. She's just a mature-looking young woman, and that's fine. But, and also, the acting, you know what I mean?
I think that is part of it with the confusion of the ages for me, is like, maybe they really did hire, for the most part, age appropriate actors, but I found it very confusing sometimes because like Susie and Meg are the counselors in the girls' cabin, but they look like peers with Judy. And Angela is the one who looks like young and perhaps a little out of place, but she also sort of looks like a peer with Judy. And then in the boys' cabin, they've got that guy Gene with his blue mesh shirt, and he looks like a full-ass, grown-ass adult man. You know what I mean? And I just like, it's a little hard to parse sometimes who's supposed to be the adult in the room, or like, are they supposed to be an adult, or is this like an 18-year-old camp counselor? You know what I mean? Like, who knows exactly what the deal is? And also the movie doesn't care. And also the movie is like, this camp counselor who looks 15 is fucking this 57-year-old man, however old he is. Like,
that was
whatever.
so upsetting.
It was.
We didn't need that subplot. We truly did not need that subplot.
No one asked for it. We don't need it.
Okay, let's talk about the characters in this film, because like I think the film like is a character driven movie, like less of the plot,
Okay.
like more about the characters. Know what I mean? Because like we're
Sure.
pretty invested in. You have Angela, who is our main focus girl, who has a tragic backstory that we are introduced into right off the get-go, where her and her brother, is it her twin brother, maybe? Like
he looks a little smaller, I would guess younger, but
there's
also
no way to know.
Some children are randomly small.
Yeah, that's true. Just it depends on their height percentile,
some are big,
or whatever.
some are tiny.
But so her brother and her hot dad are all like on a cute little boat, and they're like they're playing in the lake and having a good time. And some teens that work at the camp are pulling a girl water skiing, and the girl is like, no, the water skiing girl is crying hysterically, and she's like, can we please
face off.
stop? I don't like this. Which honestly, mood. And the two teens on the boat are like, I want to drive, and they're bickering about this. That scene takes forever. They're just like,
my
we see them
God.
constantly bicker for like 5 minutes.
I thought that was kind of well done though, because it made me so fucking anxious, because like the family flips over their sailboat, right? So they're just floating around in the water next to their capsized boat. And you hear, for like 20,000 years, it seems like this camp counselor and a camper bickering over who should fucking
Marianne and young lifeguard
who should
and
drive the boat.
Delore,
And then the camp counselor, the camp counselor's like, oh yeah, child, you can drive this boat that's going 70 miles per hour. And I was like, they're gonna die, but it takes 20,000 years for the death to occur. It's so stressful.
Yeah, I mean, the thing about that scene is, first of all, that the girl in back, her name is Delore, which kills me, because that's, to my knowledge, not really a name. And IMDb does, in fact, credit her as Dolores, which is a name, but that's not in the movie. But they have this whole quibbling, bickering scene. Finally, she drives. And then for some reason, she's just aiming straight at the shore the literal whole time. You know what I mean? They're just aiming straight for the beach, the sand, with no thoughts in their little head. Like, Delora in the back is screaming like, there's a boat, like there's people in the water. She's screaming her little head off. That is not something that they're concerned with, but they are also not concerned with the fact that they're heading straight towards shore. Like, what are they even doing?
Listen, they're just like, no thoughts, just vibes. Like in this whole boat ride, they're like not paying attention to their skier. They're not looking out for pedestrians in the water. Pedestrians in the water? That's not right.
They're just aquatic pedestrians.
Civilians.
They're aquatic pedestrians.
Aquatic pedestrians.
They've got the right of way.
They do have the right of way, and they already had the right of way because they were on a sailboat.
Right of
way. The right of way. Excuse me. It's early in the morning. But they have the right of way because they're on a sailboat, and that's how the law works. You have to let the sailboat pass. Stupid motorboat fucks. How dare you keep laughing at how I said right of way? I'm just a little girl. I just learned to speak. It's the right of way. No.
This is really cute.
I just
this
like
is a through line to last episode when you were being like slightly. It's like the same. Yeah,
it's the Jersey of it all. I'm trying to do the accent and I'm failing.
You're so cute.
Oh, thank you. But yeah, I mean, it's just, I don't know how you don't see that, especially when they're like about 15 feet from the shore. You're right, Chelsea. Like, if not the boat, if you can't see the boat, you do see the shore right there, and you're
You
going
sure are gonna run
100
aground.
miles per hour.
But like you
straight
also
for the
see the
shore.
boat and the people. Like they're very obvious. Like they're all wearing like bright orange life vests. And it's like,
Well,
my dude.
they're stupid as fuck, and so they kill everyone. Well, not everyone, but the daddy is for sure dead, and the children are maimed. And
the dad just got like some blunt force trauma though, or something. You know what I mean? He's just like floating face down, no injuries in sight, but fully dead.
Yeah, he's dead. It could have slit his throat on the other side. You don't know. Boat
That's
proposal.
true.
That's
Fuck
valid.
you up.
Well,
But
so
yeah.
Angela survives. Daddy and Peter, young Peter, is dead. But okay, one thing about young Peter that I think is outrageous.
Say it.
The
Give it to
actor
me.
that played young Peter is Mike the Situation from the Jersey Shore's brother.
It's the best. It's the best thing about this film.
You told me this last week, and I totally fucking just put that out of my mind. I was like, I can't.
You said I will be
handle this
repressing that knowledge.
Oh, I repressed it. I fully repressed it. I had repressed most of the movie until I reabsorbed it this morning, and I was like,
Yeah. Honestly, reading the
shore of it
IMDb
all?
trivia after we watched it and discovering, as you just said, the Jersey Shore of it all, and then getting a few more trivia pieces down and discovering the Jane Krakowski of it all. Honestly, my brain could not take that information.
No, it's too much. But okay, let's talk about what happened. The immediate follow-up for this horrible death scene is Angela.
That they send Angela to the same camp on the other side of the lake where her family was murdered.
Well, yeah. But
8
you're
years
missing the
later.
most important part of the film. 8 years later, it shows their send off to camp. Little Angela and little Ricky send off the camp in the most just absolutely baffling scene ever. Absolutely the campiest shit I've ever seen in my life. I was reading some articles and they were like, this is some Willy Wonka shit. They didn't say that. They said it's Willy Wonka-esque, but I'm saying it's some Willy Wonka shit. The vibes are, I would say,
the vibes are
Aunt
like
Martha
great.
is a wackadoo, and I love her. I mean, I don't love her, but I love her.
She
love
cray, but she's
her
fascinating.
the way that she talks is just absolutely insane. And another article I read was like, she seems super coked out. And I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it was the
It's
80s.
got like a very John Waters tone to it. You know what I mean? Both with the implications that people have I was going to say projected onto the film, but I don't know if they are kind of like present within the film already on its own. Obviously there are a lot of like gender politics and stuff to discuss with this film that we'll get into as we continue the conversation, because we haven't said the big spoiler yet. And so I will give people a few more minutes, but there's a lot of discussion about the presentation of Aunt Martha and what implications come with that presentation. That is also very John Waters, you know what I mean? Because John Waters made a lot of very queer cinema. And so it's really strange in that moment, because the filmmaker basically was like, I was trying to make a buck, but obviously there are gender themes like implicit within the movie, not necessarily in the way that the cult classic interpretation of it has become, where people really take it meaningfully to be something that is important to them, but not necessarily the intention of the film. But again, that doesn't matter with art. What matters with art is like what it means to you.
Yeah, that's one of the most interesting things about this movie is that, like, on its face, it's super fucked up, but there's so much to read into it, and like,
yes,
as time has progressed and as society has progressed, you can read it in a different way. It's still fucked up no matter what at the end of the day, but there's like, it has more depth to it than the creators ever intended, and I love it when, you know, that happens. There's just some boob director, I don't remember his name, I'm so sorry, who is just like, let's make a ripoff of Friday the 13th and do something super fucked up because, you know, this is what people are scared of at the time. And then like 20, no, it's like 38 years later now or something. Yeah. It was 35 years later in 2018. I could do math. It's something like that. Anyway,
I love math.
I love math.
To quote
and it
Shrek,
means so much more.
this movie is like an onion. It has a lot of layers.
Shit.
It's like, what could you possibly be saying, to quote Shrek? Where's this possibly gonna go?
Kelsey, there is so much wisdom to be gleaned from Shrek. I can't believe you even batted an eye.
That
I'm
there
shocked.
absolutely is. And perhaps one day when we have begun our 5th Tuesday of it all, we'll do Shrek and peel back some of those layers. But I just wasn't sure. Although I guess presentation in that movie is also such a huge theme, and your inner self, etc. Anyway, you're right. Why would I ever? How dare I?
How dare you? Honestly.
I apologize.
Thank you. That's what we were looking for. Anyway,
I apologize.
But yeah, I mean, I just love the way that is Aunt Margaret or Aunt Martha. I'm so sorry. Martha. Aunt Martha. I love the way that she speaks to the children, but is speaking to herself. She's like, she like looks away and like has like little asides with herself. And it's very alarming and fun. Good for her.
Do you know? Okay. So sorry. And who knows if this will make this into the final cut of the episode. But I kept trying to remember who Aunt Martha reminds me of. And her presentation and manner of speaking reminds me of that cocktail woman on TikTok that you like, where she does the smile the whole time because somebody told her that she has to smile. I think her mom was like, you need to smile more in her videos. And now she like very pointedly smiles the entire time, even as she's like grinding something. That's what it reminds me of.
Love her. Spirited LA. Everyone, go on TikTok, follow Spirited LA. Learn about cocktails and fall in love like I have.
But that like
I'm just thinking about
very strong presentation of it all, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Reminds me of the way that Aunt Martha behaves on screen, being like, what is this? Blah blah blah. Where it's so fascinating.
Spirited LA is not like that.
Spirited LA is like a normal person, but the way that she behaves in front of the camera is very much like I have scripted this out ahead of time and I'm remembering it in my brain as I'm presenting it to you. And the way that Martha speaks is also very like, you can see the cogs turning in her brain every single moment.
Totally. But yeah, I mean, that the send off is absolutely jarring, and then the rest of the movie is like nothing like that at all, you know. And I love that. Just like this like high camp, very very coiffed everything. Her outfit is so perfect, like the set design is
she's got
so
a little
fancy.
beret.
Like her perfect makeup, all this stuff, everything is very like Willy Wonka, like I said earlier. And then the rest of it's just like, we're at camp and we're having a good time.
Yeah, but here's the thing. The outfits of this movie, especially in the men, this movie is incredibly queer coded. I mean, just like,
God.
And sometimes it's not even coded, it's like canon.
Sometimes they're like, what are you, queer?
But like
the movie's like, yes, this is queer.
I have never in my life seen a movie that showed so many dick prints in teeny tiny shorts.
Honestly,
it was like Himbo
more
City.
dick in this movie.
So much dick in this
Himbo
movie.
City, USA. Yeah, so many dick prints, and then later on, we won't say it yet. A lot of dicks happening.
Frankly, more than any I've seen in perhaps any film, any in the history of cinema.
I haven't seen Shame or whatever, and I think that has more dick, but that one's like kind of dick forward. All about dick. So
dick presenting.
Yeah, like I don't think they meant to put as many dicks in this movie as made the final cut. You know what I mean? Well, I mean, who knows? They just were like, we must have very snug shorts.
It was the time.
I want to bring that back.
Some real ball hugger shorts.
I want to bring that back. I want men's crop tops that go like right under their nipple. I want
men to have their yitties out, and I meant men to really be sexualizing themselves in the way that women have been sexualized for so long. I don't really actually want that. I don't care that much, but it is fascinating to look at. I do enjoy a peep. You know what I mean? If they want to bring it around, I say go for it.
I just like, oh, it's so good.
Like the short shorts, and I'm trying to find his name. What is the name of Ricky's camp counselor?
Ronnie.
Jean.
Oh, you guys both said two different names.
Jean is a blue mesh tank top, his camp counselor. Ronnie is like Mel's son who helps run the whole camp. But Ronnie probably is who you're thinking of.
No, I wasn't. I was thinking of Jean.
Oh.
Jean, the one with the mesh tank top. Yeah. Jean is the sex pot of it all. Like Ronnie's doing too much, you know. Ronnie's too buff for me. Ronnie's wearing the dolphin shorts. Been there, done that. Jean was pushing the envelope with fashion. A mesh like crop top that no one noticed that at first. They didn't see that it was mesh. I was like,
that's
you guys,
true. You and I didn't notice at all when we watched. And Sydney had to tell us.
Shirt. No, I'm the one who noticed.
Monica was the one that was like, that is mesh.
Excuse me.
That is mesh.
I apologize again. Apologies all over the place this episode.
Undercover fashion police here on the pod. And
that's true.
I was like, this is not just a standard fit. This is a mesh fit. And that's incredible. And he just had look after look after look after look. And he's also just an absolutely stunning piece of man meat. And I hate to objectify him in that way, but I just did. And he was one of my favorite parts. Also, he was a good boy the whole time. And he was nice. Yeah. And he took away the knife from that boy who tried to stab the other boy. And that's not even the murder part. So we appreciate him trying to stop any killings at the summer camp. That's nice.
But also in that moment, I did also appreciate Ricky being like, he's just joking. Because it's like, well, Ricky is the one playing pranks first. And I don't think Moats would have stabbed him, hopefully. Anyway.
Maybe.
But who knows?
Yeah. But okay, let's get into some of the murders here because there are so many. 13, I believe. Murder. There's so many. So we already got dead dad, dead baby from the beginning. Then the first person to go is super skeezy, very terrible chef. What was his name?
Artie.
Ugh.
My enemy, Artie. Artie, who in like one of the very first scenes when they get to campus, like, there's no such thing as too young for me. And it's like, you're
fucking licking his mouth. He's like,
yes. And then even Ben was just like, ah, ha, ha, ha. And I was like, how dare Ben laugh? And then I was like, well, but I also don't know Ben's position in this camp. Maybe it was one of those things where it's like, you laugh because you're uncomfortable, because you don't know what else to do. And Artie was his boss, as far as I can tell. So, I mean, hate it, but also sometimes whatever. Anyway, Artie is a monster.
He's a horrible monster. And like, immediately Ronnie, like, in an attempt to help young Angela adjust to camp because she cannot eat any of the food or doesn't want to because she's nervous, she's having a hard time, is like, oh, let's take you to the chef directly and he can get you something nice, which is so nice. That's a very nice thing to go out of his way in theory, but he just took her and put her in a closet with a sexual predator, a child molester, right off the bat. So that's great.
Yeah. You'd think Ronnie would have a better awareness of Artie's character. And to be fair to Ronnie, he didn't actually put Angela in the closet with Artie. He just left Angela in the kitchen and also there, but then Ben went to like go get something in another room, and then Artie was like, come into the closet with me, little girl, we'll see if we can find you something that you like. He didn't speak in a gremlin voice, but to me he did.
That was the
basically
he basically did. And
is it a gremlin voice that's kind of like leprechaun-y, maybe almost?
It's whatever
or
you
like
want
a troll,
babe.
Okay. Yeah, he's a troll. But he's absolutely a monster, and I would murder him myself if somebody didn't take care of it for me. Because thank God, you know what I mean? He does bring Angela into the closet. Thankfully, Ricky is like, what's going on back there? And he runs back to take care of his cousin because he's a nice boy. And then we discovered that Artie's like unbuttoning his pants.
Yes.
And the kids get the fuck out of there. And someone immediately is like, but do you know what? I'm not done with Artie. Actually, he must be punished post haste for his crimes.
Yes, and this is
And
where
I
we
love
get
that.
the most baffling piece of kitchenware I've ever seen. I guess it makes sense because they have to feed so many kids, but like literally a giant kitchen pot filled with boiling water that is the perfect size to boil a body in. You know, you could put a human in there. It's at least 5 feet tall. He has to get on a ladder to stir all this to boil some fucking corn.
It truly is the biggest pot I've ever seen in my entire life.
And it would take so long to boil a pot of water that size when it's tall and skinny and you only have a heat source all the way at the bottom and you've got to keep all that like 4 feet of water in between. It doesn't make sense. But also, I guess you're at a camp. You got to use the other burners. You need a tall, skinny pot. But I hate it. I hate that pot.
Chelsea, it's on the power burner. It's fine. Okay? It's going to be fine. The power burner is not okay. But okay, it's also... he can die in a horribly gruesome way. So I wonder if that's a real thing. I'll look it up at some point, but not now. But like his death is just so fabulous because they do the whole like killer's perspective kind of thing in this movie too, which they stole from Friday the 13th and other movies. But you know, Friday the 13th also did it. And he's up on his little step ladder and he says, "Oh, it's you." And someone pushes him towards the pot.
Hey, kid. Yeah.
And he puts his hands on like the shelf above. And he's like stuck there somehow. And he 100% could have just pushed his arms back and then fallen. Like he would have fallen backwards, but like that's better than what happened. But he's real dumb. And thank God. Because then he gets pushed one more time. And the boiling water falls upon his face and his entire body.
He grabs it and pulls it onto himself, which is the really wild part. He falls back and grabs it for leverage, which is like, you stupid little bitch, just fall and crack your head open. Instead, he poured boiling water all over himself. But I don't even think he died. Because he's screaming for the next 5 minutes as he's laying on the ground with his scalded arms in the air. And then when the paramedics finally arrive to take him out and they're like, "We don't have a sedative strong enough to put him out of the pain that he's in. He'll just be in misery forever." Which
deserved.
Okay,
but okay, there's some incredible makeup. Yes.
The practical effects
of
this like they might had a very low budget, but they were so good.
They got creative.
They slap.
They were so good.
They like squirted gelatin like underneath fake skin to make these like boiling boils from like the 7th degree burns that he has. I don't think that's a thing. Like pulsate and oh my God. What is the other movie we just watched that had pulsating boils?
Friday the 13th, where they didn't have pulsating boils, but in Friday the 13th they had like the arrow through Kevin Bacon's neck. That is like evocative of the same moment for me, where it's like making it work from a false bottom, stabbing it up. Because in this movie they like built a fake floor so that it would look like the actor was like laying flat on the floor, but instead, I don't know, they were underneath or something, or they had like the tubes coming out from underneath so that they could be like squeezing it to make the boils pulsate.
Ooh, gross.
Disgusting.
But okay, so Artie's out of the picture. He do be dead, and he's not dead. He do be gone. He do be maimed. He do be horribly maimed. He probably succumbed to his wounds at a later time. If we're lucky, as one can hope for a predator of that sort. But then we get the real crux of the film, which is child murder. And so Chelsea and I have seen the whole Fear Street trifecta series. And we watched the second one together at a street food cinema event, and it was awesome. The movie, pretty good. The movie, though, I was watching it and I had only seen Friday the 13th at the time, and I was like, oh, this is ripping off so much Friday the 13th. No. This movie was ripping off Sleepaway Camp 100%. All the shit that I was like, oh, this is like Friday the 13th. It was like through the transitive property. It was like, yeah, I was ripping off Friday the 13th because Sleepaway Camp was ripping off Friday the 13th. But like specifically, like the fact that it's like Child Death City, USA, like that only happens in Sleepaway Camp. There's literally a color war thing. And that's like a huge plot point in Fear Street Part 2. it was like carbon copy-esque. There an axe? No, the axe was in Friday the 13th. Or was there
No, there was an axe in this movie.
There is an axe
with
in this movie.
the campers at the end and their little sleeping bags.
Fuck. Oh my God. I totally forgot about that part. But yeah, so the rest of the movie is just like anytime something bad or someone is mean to Angela, something bad happens to that person later on. And the big question is like, it couldn't be Angela doing this because she's so sweet and timid. It must be Ricky, her overbearing, hot-headed cousin, I guess, pseudo brother, who like is super, super protective of her. And so who's the next person to go? I think it's
Kenny in the lake.
Yeah, Kenny and his friend, who is also a dick and never gets fucking killed, which is stupid.
The other guy's a dick first, but I will say that Kenny deserves it more because they were like, oh, why don't you go ask Angela? And then Kenny was like, maybe I will. Like, maybe Angela and I are going to get married one day. That could be my future wife. You don't know. And then he proceeds to immediately disrespect her. You know what I mean? Yeah. So it's like, if that's the way you would treat your future wife, Kenny, I'm glad you never had the chance to get married, Kenny.
Yes. I hate it when like men go, this happens so often. They like go up to a woman. Usually it's not like a 13-year-old and we're at summer camp. This happens with adults too. It's shocking. No one grows up. And they're like, hey, pretty lady, do you want to go dance? And you're like, no. And then they're like, you ugly old hag. I never thought you were hot at all. And it's like, yes, you did. You just asked me to dance. It's so weird. I was like, but you're still insulting yourself if we're going by this logic, because you just asked an ugly old hag to dance. Like, I don't understand. The logic is not there. So Kenny's an idiot, and I hate him.
But Kenny does have a great mullet.
Great mullet. Agreed.
Great mullet.
10 out of 10. And I did. Oh, you go.
No, go first.
No, I was.
No, you go.
Death.
I was
No. Somebody say something.
I was also about to talk about his death.
Okay, you do it.
Okay.
I want you to do it.
Wow, you guys are so beautiful together.
Thank you. His death is so cool. So like he's taking a girl out on like a little midnight canoe trip, and he flips over the canoe and Leslie's like, I'm getting the fuck out of here. How dare you get my hair wet, basically.
You little bitch. Yeah, because she's like, I told you no funny business. You said no funny business. Here you are. Guess what you're doing?
Funny business. And she swims away back to the shore.
She's a great swimmer.
Fun fact. Something happened with the actresses. So the girl on the canoe and then the girl that gets out of the water are two different actresses.
And one of them is somebody's wife.
Yes.
Cool. Good for her.
I love a wife.
Good wife. But so Kenny is under the canoe and being like, Leslie, where are you? And then we see.
First of all, can I just say it's a bad strategy to try and scare somebody when you can't see where they are? What are you doing, Kenny? Level up.
Stupid. Also, though, is he like, was she wearing a white shirt? Was it one of those type of things? I feel like that was part of the vibe.
I think she's wearing like a blue and yellow shirt.
Either way, it's disgusting.
But he kept being like, oh, there's water snakes. Like, watch out. And then lots of the guys were joking about water snakes. And then one guy like jiggled his dick while saying it. So, I mean, there was clearly some innuendo happening here in general.
We did get some good butts.
Nikki boy butts.
This, like, all the guys went skinny dipping. And I was like,
yeah, that's why they were harassing Angela earlier. They were like, we have 15 guys to skinny dip and only 5 girls have agreed. And then so they were like, we gotta boost that ratio. And then none of the girls really wanted to go when they were on scene. All of the girls were like, I don't know, you guys are kind of shitty. And then all the guys were like, fine, we'll skinny dip just the 15 of us men together. Men who are naked together. And it's straight. And don't you dare say anything else. Although obviously, as most straight male activities are, where they love to jokingly show each other their genitals, it's not that straight. But you know, that's their business, and they're gonna have to parse that in their own time as they grow up.
But yeah, I mean, this death is so good because one, it just shows that no one actually gives a shit about Kenny. Poor guy. They don't care about him. They all think he's annoying because he's annoying. And they're like, oh, he's just trying to fuck with us. And so that's why he's not coming out of the water in the middle of the night when his canoe capsized. My God. Like, I just read a book with like a drowning. Okay. Like, this happens all the time when you capsize a boat. Look what happened in the beginning of the movie. But Kenny sucks so much that no one would think that he did that cute little thing where you pop up under the boat. He was trying to have that romantic moment. You pop up under the boat, you make out under the boat. That happens sometimes in a movie I saw one time thousands of years ago. He's like, oh, that'll be fun. But guess who pops up under the boat with him? It's the fucking killer. And they fucking kill him to death. Do they stab him?
I think they just drown him.
They drown him? Because he looks real fucked up the next morning when they find his body. He's like eating his shit. He looks terrible.
Yeah, they do discover him the next day. He's got like algae all over him. His face is like frozen in fear, and he's got a water snake slithering out of his mouth.
That was a good detail.
Yeah, that was a great detail, especially after he kept being like, haha, water snakes. And turtles was the other thing he said.
Oh, yeah.
He kept being like water snakes and turtles. And then if his face had been chomped by a turtle, that would really truly have been the finishing touch we needed. You know what I mean? That's true. He could have been chomped.
I think he got chomped because like that or the fish had a fucking buffet, a Kenny buffet.
Kenny buffet.
Yeah. So now you know how it's gonna go, and it keeps going that way. So everyone who is an asshole, they have a mark on their back for whoever
better watch out.
is. Yeah. And so is the next person to go the camp counselor?
Meg.
The next person to go is Billy.
Oh yeah, Billy.
And that's honestly one of the most iconic kills because it's
kill.
Also the thing about Kenny's death and the thing about Artie's death is that they were both like a seize the moment opportunity. You know what I mean? The thing about Billy's death is that it is like meticulously planned ahead of time. Because what happens is that Billy is in the bathroom and then somebody like slides a wooden dowel in between the handles on the bathroom stall door so that it can't open.
Yeah, he's locked
and
in.
They're like inside the cabin, sliding the wooden dowel in place. They leave the cabin. They like use a knife to cut open a slice in the screen in the window. And then they say, oh yes, this beehive that I had cut down ahead of time and have prepared and waiting for me in this moment, I can now lower in. Like the planning that went into this moment, especially when, not to defend Billy, but Billy threw a water balloon. And Artie is a literal predator. So it seems a little disproportionate, but also I think at that point, like it's not so much the scale of the sin as
the sin itself.
The floodgates have been opened and it's all really starting to add up, and collectively it doesn't matter so much what one individual did, because like the three campers at the end like threw sand, you know what I mean?
They have already
just, like, kicked sand at somebody. But the point is like I will not take another slight against me, you know what I mean? Like it's too much. Anybody who is trying to hurt me at all is gonna get it, because I can't deal with any increasing trauma. Or someone can't deal with somebody else's increasing trauma because we don't know who the killer is at this point in the movie, blah blah blah, whatever.
Well, and for Billy, Billy had the big baseball scene with Ricky, and so this could be another like they were talking shit back and forth the whole time, and so you're just like,
okay.
Yeah, how do you not remember the 45-minute long baseball scene where everyone's wearing shorts?
And it does have the iconic line where Billy says like, eat shit and die, Ricky, and Ricky goes, eat shit and live, Billy, which is beautiful.
But so like this is another like red
that
herring moment, because like, and Ricky, like after he throws the water balloon at Angela, is like, you fucking prick.
His
like
shit.
And that's funny to me was how they auditioned roles for Ricky was they just had the actors come in and just like scream obscenities, and that's how he got cast.
Our little Ricky was so good at it. Look at him.
What's his name? Jonathan Tiernan or something like that.
Yeah.
Jonathan Tiersten.
Yes.
Yeah.
I was so close.
But it was, and he did so good. And so this is another like, is it Ricky? Like, because Angela's mom, her like real life mom, so Felissa Rose's mom, didn't want her daughter to be like assumed to be the killer at all. And so when you see like this movie is a POV from like the killer, so you never see the killer, you just see like all the hands and you're like, that's a man's hands. Like that is a man's
and it sure
hands.
is a man's hands.
It is. They had a man come in and do all the killing scenes, an different man, not any character in the movie. And so that's why you get those meaty man hands.
No, those are all Ricky's hands.
They're Ricky's hands?
Mm-hmm.
I thought it was someone else.
It's Ricky, so it's he did all of it's him, and it's like in when Kenny it's Ricky, it's the actor who plays Ricky, like doing all of these scenes.
Oh, you're right.
Oh, you're
You're
right.
right. I misremembered.
That also makes sense because I read this piece of IMDb trivia the same as you, and then I guess my brain deleted it. Because when I was rewatching the film this morning, there's like the backlit shot of the killer later in the film, but it is also lit well enough that you can pretty much see their face.
Yeah, and it's totally Ricky's face.
Yes, but I was for some reason forgot or was like thought that for sure that it wasn't Jonathan Tiersten in that moment, and I was like, what's going on here that we can clearly see that they say like Jonathan Tiersten donned a wig for that scene, but also it doesn't even look like Jonathan Tiersten is wearing a wig. It looks like somebody's holding up a wig behind Jonathan Tiersten's head.
It does.
But the best part for us is like when this movie originally came out, the quality was so bad, so you couldn't see his face. And so the reason
I bet that's like a remastering.
It is. It's a remastering. And so because
they went in and they were like, enhance.
Yes. And so because
CS
it got remastered, like we can clearly see who it is.
That's
but
so
in the
funny.
original, like when it came out in 83, like you could not see the face. You could just see the silhouette. And I'm like, that's hilarious.
That's
that you can very
funny.
clearly see the face, see the differentiation between like Jonathan Tiersten's hair and whatever hair they're holding up behind his body. Just a mess. Which is to say that I guess we have spoiled for you in this moment that Jonathan Tiersten does not actually play the killer. Wow, shocking. Have you seen this film?
Let's not get into it yet, though. There's so much to divulge.
There's so much.
So Meg is the next one to get got. And Meg
deserved.
Here's the thing, all the murders except for the children, the small children,
all
deserved what they got.
Meg
they
was
all had it
so-
coming.
Judy's was maybe a little unnecessarily
overkill.
But
Overkill for
she
sure.
deserved to die. Like she just did.
Sure. Yeah. The way that she was murdered, although I guess I would say the murder in that moment is honestly questionable because Judy's body gets tucked away, but nobody discovers it at any point.
She's dead.
Yeah,
You don't have to
probably. But
survive
also
that.
like if Artie gets to survive, who knows? You know what I mean?
Artie for sure succumbed to his injuries. There's no way he survived that.
Yeah, I mean, I think though then you have to make the argument that Judy was smothered with the pillow. You know what I mean? That the curling wand was just a decoration essentially at that point.
But yeah, so for the next one is Meg though, and Meg has just been with Judy. They've been tag teaming, terrorizing Angela this entire time because Angela doesn't want to go swimming. She doesn't shower with everyone else. She's not into the same food as everyone else. She's like kind of off on her own, and
she like took forever to even speak at all in this film. She didn't speak for 3 days until Paul went up to her and was like, "Hey, cutie," and then she's like, "Good night."
Which is like the cutest part of the entire movie. I fucking loved that part. And then of course everything goes real wrong.
He walks away and she goes, "Good night," and then he turns around and realizes what just happened, and he goes, "Good night." He's like so excited.
Yeah,
sweet
so like
little Paul.
I think they're like jealous of her because she is like a weirdo in their mind and she's still getting attention from one of the cuter boys at the camp, even though both of them look like they're 5 years older than this cute boy who looks like he's 12. So I like don't understand this. But again, casting. But Meg is the counselor and is somehow best friends with the camper Judy, that's also weird. Maybe the age difference is like 1 year. Maybe like 15 is the cutoff and then 16 you're a counselor. Lord knows there's no rules in this fucking movie. But Meg just like absolutely like berates Angela at every moment. She like, does she slap her?
No, Judy gets slapped by Susie.
Oh, Judy
when
gets
Judy's
slapped.
like being a bitch in her short little robe.
But there's one point where she's like fucking freaking out at Angela, and another counselor
yeah,
has to step
and Ronnie
in and
has
be
to
like,
come over.
Bro,
Yeah.
what the fuck are you doing? So,
and that's why Judy's like shouting at her later because she's like, "You got Meg in trouble," and then Susie has to slap her, and then Susie looks so horrified with herself because Susie is an angel.
She's such a good girl. But Meg also makes us all shocked when she gets a night off from work. She's very stoked. And of course you have, and you can do anything on your night off.
She says, "What should I do with my time?"
Yeah,
I know.
I'm going to go on a date with the 70-year-old camp owner. He's not 70, but he might be 70. There's no way to tell. And it's absolutely jarring. He's like, yeah, come over to my house at 9 p.m. 9 p.m.? That's booty call hour. It's too late for dinner. You'll be starving. No, very upsetting. But you know, Meg has to freshen up before her hot date with a decrepit
with an old man.
And so she goes into the deserted showers that no one uses. And that's where she meets her fate. And I will say that I loved this death because yes, it's very psycho, but wow, it's very gruesome.
Graphic.
It's like the killer was trying to cut out her spine. You know, she goes all the way up the back, slicing all the way up there. There's no coming back from that. How do you get through all those bones? This must be a very nice knife.
Very sharp
Modes
knife.
knows what he's doing. Mode said, "I come to camp with nothing but the best."
Nothing but the best.
Maybe there's like a knife sharpening skills activity that they did earlier in camp that they said it's knife sharpening or baseball. You know what I mean? And they went with baseball.
We can't do both. We either have to do 20 minutes of baseball or nothing. But yeah, poor Meg. She's gone, baby. She's gone. And then the deaths start to speed up after that, because then pretty quickly after that Judy's next, right?
Judy's like the same night. Everything else is the same night.
Yeah, everything else is just a rampage, baby. It's a rampage.
Well, and we get Mel, the owner, who thinks it's obviously Ricky who is doing all of the killings. And so he literally like beats the shit out of Ricky too.
Does he? I mean, like, yes, he does, but also all that we see him doing is flailing his arms, which is not an effective beating the shit out of somebody technique. So, like, am I glad that he did it because Ricky survived? Like, yes, obviously, but the way he just liar.
Have you ever been karate chopped repeatedly?
Yeah.
It
That's
hurts.
a good point.
His hands could be lethal weapons. But in the original script, Mel was supposed to just like kill Ricky. And then they were like decided like, no, we like Ricky. We're going to let him live.
Well, good.
Amazing.
I'm glad he lived because I
choice.
like him and I like how he's so good at cursing people out. Judy I did not like, but then no one deserves to go this way. The killer slinks into her room by night. She's gone back from the ice cream social early, I guess.
Yeah, she was hooking up with that guy in her cabin, and then he got freaked out when Mel caught them, and he left, and she was like, "Oh, fine, whatever. I'll change into my pajamas, but also I'm going to curl my hair." Which iconic. I love that she's just like you can't stop the drip.
She has to keep up her appearance as the hottest girl at camp, okay? It's a lot of work goes into that. Do you see her hair? She has incredible hair, and she wears it in that weird, tiny, small side ponytail where the rest of it is down for 90% of the movie. And that look, she makes it look good. It doesn't make any fucking sense, but it looks good. So obviously some work goes into it. But that's what gets her in the end, because not only is she smothered or whatever, she is also
something with a curling iron. We don't see it, so I choose not to believe the obvious answer.
A hot curling iron. She's dead. There's no way. And then her dead body gets plopped onto the ground under the bed, the perfect hiding place. Those are tall bunks, people would have seen it, but there's too much crazy shit going on. No one's coming back. No one's coming back for that. And part of the reason that Judy is so hated is not just because she's been bullying Angela the entire time and making fun of her for liking Paul and all that, but also
and being like, you don't even shower with us because you don't have pubes, and it's like, all right, well, that's weird.
Flat as
a weird thing
puberty right now. It's called puberty. You get puberty.
You probably haven't even gone through puberty yet. She's 13. Some people do it a little later.
Yeah,
she's just a late bloomer.
And so she also is trying to get Angela's man, and she lures Angela's man Paul into the bushes and kisses him, and Angela catches him. And I think that is one of the reasons why she gets got in the most graphic way of the film.
I think the reason, I think that's contributing, but I think it's worth noting that this all happens. Everybody gets their comeuppance, as IMDb suggests, pretty much immediately. You know what I mean? Like Artie is like right away. Kenny is like later that night. Meg and Angela, when they threw her in the water, that was earlier that same day. So I think that was like the moment that pushed it over the edge, that Judy was part of the throwing Angela in the water of it all. You know what I mean? Like, you kiss my boyfriend, sure, whatever, but like it certainly didn't help. And I think that is possibly why that moment is
so graphic,
sexualized, maybe. Although I also think that there's like a lot of lesbian subtext surrounding Judy that we'll get into later. But I don't know. I didn't like the curling iron of it all. Yeah. I didn't think that we needed that. But I guess it is horrifying, and they were going for the most horrifying things they could think of in this film.
I don't know why that. I'm glad that it's in there. I'm not glad that happened, but I've never seen something like that, and I was like, "Fuck, good idea for a fucked up thing." You know what I mean? But like, creative.
In Judy's death, there is a clear reference to Artie's death, because we get the hands doing the like hand reaching up thing.
Oh yeah.
Oh wait, I just had a smart girl thought. Okay. Maybe the fact that it's the curling iron is like a comment on Judy's vanity and how vanity will kill you in the end. I don't know what that song was, but I was like, this is a film school thought that I just had.
But also, I do like the comparison to Artie, because the way that Judy is tormenting Angela is also very sexualized. Like that whole speech, she says like, "Hey, Angela, how come you never take showers when the rest of us do, huh? You queer or something? Oh, I know what it is. You haven't reached puberty yet. Is that it? I bet you don't even have your period. She takes showers when no one else can see she has no hair down below. She's a real carpenter's dream. Flat as a board and needs a screw." Like, it's very much like a sexualized, antagonizing moment. You know what I mean? It's very much about Angela's body, which is also part of the horror with like Kenny trying to be like, come skinny dipping with us, and Artie being a predator. And you know what I mean? Like that, I think that has to play a role.
Totally. I agree.
Oh yeah, definitely.
So,
but then also there are some other kills in this film just before they wrap up a tidy little end.
So tidy.
Which is, the campers in the woods who threw sand on Angela after Meg and Judy tossed her in the lake. And they kind of just got mostly off screen. Like we see like the axe being picked up, and then we see like their chopped up little bodies. And then also Mel, after he has karate chopped Ricky into submission, gets his own comeuppance with a Friday the 13th a clear reference. Why did I say direct?
A clear reference.
A direct reference. Shut up.
A direct copying.
Yeah, a direct copying, a clear reference, if you will, with the archery scene. And that's a little Kevin Bacon through the throat and a little Brenda. And then there's also that moment of Mel being like, it's you, which is kind of funny. And then there's another murder that happens right before the end that is revealed like in the final moments.
Yes.
Which is Peter, who we've mentioned Peter, but we have hardly discussed Peter other than the Judy of it all and the good night of it all.
Wait, is his name Peter or Paul?
Paul.
Okay, I was like, fuck, have I been saying the wrong name the whole time?
No, you're right, and I'm wrong, and I'm just wrong about everything today.
Yes.
I'm just gonna, I'll
Peter,
do a pity
Paul, and
party
Mary.
later, but
It's hard to
yes,
get it right, okay? It's fine. But yeah,
thank you.
Paul is a problematic boy because I really liked him at the beginning because he was so sweet to Angela, and then he was trying to push past her boundaries and touch her boobie and all this stuff, and I was just like,
he's just
Paul,
terminally horny.
He's super horny, and he was like, but then he was still nice, but then it felt like he was like just being nice to try to butter her up so they could make out again, you know, and he kissed her without consent, all this shit. But then he thinks everything's going well because Angela's like, hey, baby boy, come meet me at the lake late tonight after the ice cream social. I don't know if it's an ice cream social, but it's got to be an ice cream social. I'm pretty
That's
sure
what it is now.
That's what it is. When I went to camp, we had ice cream socials, and so that's what it is. And
it feels right.
So he thinks he's gonna get it, you know, in the sexual sense, like get it, but he gets got instead. And this scene is the scene of the movie. This is what people talk about there's so many articles just about this scene. And boy, yeah, there's so much to say.
Yeah, because the thing is, there's actually a scene earlier in the movie where Paul and Angela are kissing on the beach, and he starts to get a little grabby with her, and she's like, I don't know, and he's like, it's fine, I'm just holding my hands right here between your yitties, I'm not touching them. But Angela has like that flashback to when the two little children from the beginning, Angela and Peter, are watching their father, and it turns out, gasp, they've got gay dads.
Oh no.
Gay dads.
And oh my god, can I just say that this couple is a fucking smoke show? Oh my god.
I know. They're such a hot couple.
Very sensual, beautiful scene. And
yeah, what's the other dad's name? Like Leon or something? Lenny and John.
Lenny and John, OTP.
And there's
John
like,
and Lenny.
Yeah. There's this scene of the little kids like watching them like kiss and canoodle in bed, but for some reason it's taking place in like a rotating entirely black room. I don't know. And then at the end, in between Angela being like, let's go down to the lake and skinny dip, like you see Angela sitting like petting Paul's hair, and then you get another flashback to that same rotating black room, except this time it's Peter and Angela sitting on the bed together, and Peter just like staring at Angela, pointing.
Yeah.
And then it cuts back to the action as Ronnie and Susie discover what has happened, and Angela goes, oh, you really want to know what's happening? I'll show you everything that's happening.
Yeah, she stands up and Paul's little head rolls away, decapitated head rolls away. And then you get the most haunting image that anyone has seen. And it's mostly haunting because it's this like absolutely bonkers fucked graphics, or like, I don't know, 1983 visual imaging done, because as we know, the actress that plays Angela is 13 years old. She is a literal child. So it's her head superimposed in the most bizarre way I've ever seen onto apparently a college age man's naked body. And that is when you find out that, and this is just how it's framed in the movie, oh my God, she's been a boy all this time. Even the Annie, was that her name?
Oh, yeah. You're right, because I said the flashbacks were wrong. The pointing, spinning scene is the same one as the canoodling scene. The flashback that we get right before the reveal is Aunt Martha being like, a little girl in the family. How exciting. We've already got a little boy. So sorry, Peter, but you'll have to be a little girl. Angela, that means angel, don't you think?
really incredibly accurate portrayal of Aunt Martha.
Thank you so much.
Really
I am an
done.
actress.
And I was so mad at that part because of all of the obvious reasons, but I was like, oh God, Aunt Martha's a villain. Coked out, crazy.
Aunt Martha is a villain.
She is a villain. She's actually the villain of the film, though we love her campy amazingness and psychoticness and coked outness, you know. She did force a young boy to assume the identity of a fictional woman just because she didn't want another boy son. She wanted a little girl. Cool.
Which is actually a question that I have. Because I went back and I checked the beginning, and the daughter in the beginning calls the little boy Peter, but nobody ever says the girl's name. And so I don't know if her name is Angela and he's like being forced to live as his sister's assumed identity,
which adds
or
a
if
whole
Angela
nother
is a name that
level to
Martha.
it.
Yeah, I don't know if that's a name that like Martha has decided. IMDb
No, Angela,
does say that young
Angela.
Angela is the girl in the beginning. And some of the articles that I read about this movie said he's forced to assume his sister's identity. And you're right, that absolutely adds like a whole additional layer of trauma to it all.
To live out the life of your dead sister, like forced to assume a gender identity that is not your own. It's just absolutely fucked. So that you see that little fucking reveal, and then you see this horrifying superimposed image of a 13-year-old girl's head on making this like crazy fucking feral dog face superimposed onto like, is the body a video and the head is a picture, or is the whole thing just a picture?
The head is a mask
that they superimpose like a picture onto. Oh, it's
they made a mask of her face in this like one movement, like so her mouth is open and her eyes are bug-eyed, and the unnamed college kid is like wearing this mask. Just like standing there jacked as shit.
Super jacked.
To the point where you're just like, that's why Angela didn't want to shower. She's ripped.
She's fucking ripped. She didn't want everyone else to be uncomfortable by how ripped she is, which is very nice of her. And then, but it's like shots between this fake ass mask. I mean, it's not that, it's well done for the time, I guess. But then her actual face, and then the body and the face, like goes back and forth between the two. And it just goes on, another scene that goes on for so long, and your jaw is on the floor, your tongue is drying out because your mouth has been open for so fucking long, and you're like, what just happened? What just happened? And in the intention of the filmmaker was to be like, oh my God, trans panic. Oh my God, it's horrifying that she was a man all along, all this shit. And that's
the true scary moment of the film.
The true horror is that she's transgender. Like, oh God. It's just like, but no, as a person in 2021, the horror is just like, so many things. I was just like, the whole weight of the film comes crashing down on you, and then you kind of have to go into a fetal position and take some deep breaths and think about what it all means. And it took a whole week for us to think about what it means, but we have some thoughts now.
Yeah, I mean, I will say that Sydney warned us ahead of time that the ending is problematic and controversial, and many people have many takes about it. And so I was trying to guess it the whole time we were watching. And when they did this spinny pointing Angela Peters scene, I was like, her brother died, and so she's dissociated, and she has an alternate personality, which is her brother. And so her brother, quote unquote, is the one doing the killing, and that's going to be the problematic, controversial element of it all. Never did I guess that this was the answer until we got to the scene. And as soon as we got the flashback to Martha, I went, and Sydney looked over at me and was like,
yeah. And also, you know who else went me, because I figured it out 40 minutes before the end, and I'll never be more proud of myself, only because Sydney was like, yeah, it's really problematic. And I was like, okay, problematic, it's going to be like a social issue that we talk about today that's going to be hard to talk about on the pod. Like, that's what Sydney means. And I was like, so what is the most like
horrifying answer
insane,
you can think
horrifying
of.
answer I can think of. And then I was like, oh, well, and also at the very beginning of the movie, when they show which little kid is swimming away, I was like, that's the little boy. I said the little girl died at the beginning. Like I said that
You
out
did.
loud.
You did.
I see the little boy's like little short haircut. And so then like they brush over that and you forget. So also a good twist because they give you the answer, but you just like, they like push you away from it. But yeah. I was like, it's going to have to be this. And then it was that. And I felt validated. And then I was like very sad because I was like, damn it, I'm mad that I was right. Very mad that I was right. Oh, God.
Yeah. I mean, I read a couple different articles to see what trans people had to say about this movie. One of them, I think both of you read as well. It was written by Harmony M. Colangelo. Hope I'm saying that right. And it's called The Transgender Defense of Angela Baker in Sleepaway Camp. It's a Medium article. And then that person's partner, BJ Colangelo, also wrote an article for Dread Central. And then another trans woman wrote an article for Clio, which is a journal of film and feminism, Willow McClay. And there were some interesting perspectives where and Monica, you really started to talk about this a lot before we started recording, so I want to let you say your piece as well. But they really talk about it from the perspective of Angela being trans, but in a very forced way, where it's sort of obviously the traditional trans experience as we know it is that someone is born into a body where their biological sex does not match their own sense of their gender. So their gender just is they're trans. That's like what trans means, is when your gender identity doesn't necessarily meet the societal standards of what we would assume somebody with that biological chromosome body would have. Although of course anybody can have any gender. But this is not somebody who was born into a body that didn't represent their own internal understanding of their gender. It was somebody who is cisgender and then was forced to transition.
Yeah, like being trans was like forced upon them, which is a really interesting thing. You know, I've never seen anything like this before. And obviously the intention of the filmmaker was not to have a film about someone who was forced to be trans like that, like, and the social ramifications of that. They were just trying to be like, look at this fucked up thing, which is so fucked up.
Which is
great to watch this in 2021 and see how it can be read differently now.
That's part of the thing, is they left so much space in the film itself for a very sympathetic reading. You know what I mean? Like I read an article on the New Beverly website, I believe, where I sort of touched on it before, but the filmmaker had basically said like, oh, I sure didn't intend to make a film about gender and gender identity or anything like that. I was just doing a slapdash horror film.
Yeah.
But it's interesting because obviously, other than being a murderer, and obviously we have that final scene of Angela being fully fucking feral. Other than that, word, Angela is presented so sweetly, so sympathetically, like so meekly for the most part. Like there is that one sexualized violence scene with Judy, but other than that, like the horror of the trans woman as we understand it in our time, where TERFs would have you believe that trans women are predatory to cisgender women, and that's why you can't have them in a bathroom. My God. But that's like not the fear in this film. You know what I mean? Like that's so divorced from what the fear of this film is. And so it's such like a gentle presentation of this. I don't know that I feel that Angela is trans, because in essence, Peter is a cisgender character. You know what I mean? But also Peter has forcibly transitioned and does seem to be living somewhat comfortably to a degree as Angela.
Where I mean, there's no way to know how Angela actually felt
Angela's internal
about the experience that was thrust upon them at such a young age. It must be, there's so many layers to that. But something that I thought was really interesting is I didn't read the whole thing, so I'm very sorry, Alice Collins. But she wrote an article about for Bloody Disgusting called Sleepaway Camp, the Elephant in the Room. And so she said that the portrayal that Angela does, like the acting that Angela does, like in her just throughout the film, like how she acts, the way she acts, she's very quiet, she doesn't say a word. And to quote the article, she says, "I cannot begin to tell you how accurate this is to the lived experience of so many trans women I know, myself included. I've totally been like this in the past." So it's like this discomfort that you feel and you can't even tell where it stems from. So I guess I think I misread this when I first read it. But she's saying, like, I imagine that's the feeling pre-transition or something like that. So
yeah.
So Angela is like, it's like this whole reverse mind fuck, where she's like forced to live as the way she doesn't want to live, which is very similar to, the lived trans experience before someone has the opportunity to transition, being in a body that is or being presented in a way that you don't feel is true to yourself.
Yeah.
And so they did a good job of showing that, but they were not intending to do that at all. Which
yeah, and
they kind of failed
that's
in reverse.
Something that some of the articles that I read touched on as well. I believe the Medium article, the one written by Harmony, mentions that there are real world stories of sometimes intersex people who are assigned both like a biological sex, if you will, and also a gender at birth that doesn't represent their biological identity, which is intersex. And how those people can have huge gender dysphoria as well. And so, because sometimes they don't even, the doctors might not tell the parents, the parents might not tell the child that they're intersex, and you find out later in life. And it can be really traumatic to not have that information about yourself and to not know why you feel different or why you look different. There are people, I remember from like my psychology class in high school, that there was this real story about two twin boys, I think, and one of them had his penis mutilated in like a botched circumcision. And so they just decided they would raise him as a girl instead. And later on in life, he had a lot of gender dysphoria with the gender that he was presenting as and forced to present as, because it didn't match his own internal gender identity. And he ended up transitioning to present as the gender that would traditionally be assigned to his biological sex. And so on some level, it's interesting because it's about like the strength of your own internal gender identity that does not necessarily match how you are presenting or forced to present. But it's also interesting that it resonates so strongly with trans people because Peter is a cisgender character, perhaps, if that's the gender dysphoria that he's experiencing. You know what I mean?
Let me quote this section from Harmony Colangelo's article. She says, "In a backwards way to how things play out in most films, all this makes Angela Baker a tragic example of how important gender expression is. In Angela's brain, she is Peter, but people keep calling her by a name she doesn't want to be called and misgendering her. That is the plot of all films about transitioning, but because it takes place in reverse and is attached to a problematic film like Sleepaway Camp, it is discounted on all counts. That is doing a disservice to what the film has to say, whether it was the creator's intentions or not." And I thought that put it in a really brilliant way, because this movie is like unintentionally an argument for like allowing people to express their gender, and like obviously a dramatic and ridiculous, but like the stakes are high if someone isn't able to express herself in that way. And obviously, that the stakes aren't, obviously they're extrapolating, making it crazy.
The stakes
turning
are
her
usually
into a murderer,
serial killer murder.
The stakes are not usually serial murder, but they are grave stakes.
One thing that I also want to point out is we see that Angela and Peter has their dad is gay or has a partner.
Oh yeah, I'm glad
would
you're bringing
this
this up.
all have not happened? Because, if it's set in 1983, 8 years before is in the 70s, where being gay was, unacceptable, you couldn't have kids. When John, the dad, died, what would have happened to sweet baby Peter if he stayed with Lenny, the partner?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Like,
But presumably John was the biological father, and then when there was no biological father, Lenny
they wouldn't let him
obviously
stay.
was not married to John, and wouldn't have been able to adopt the children. You know what I mean? And so also the homophobia is squeezing Lenny out of his child's life, which is horrible. That Aunt Martha didn't make sure that Lenny could still be involved with his children, or because it seemed from the beginning they were like at the lake and they were like, oh, Aunt Martha and Ricky are gonna come over soon. Like it seemed that they had a good relationship with them as a family, but somehow Lenny got like squeezed out of the picture. And that's its own horror and trauma, being like forcibly separated from the only parent you have left. You know what I mean?
Like in 83, the point of them showing that exciting rotating bed gay scene was being like, oh look, they have transgressors as parents, or Angela has like has gay parents, and so now at the end when you find out what happens, it all makes sense. You know what I mean? That's what they were trying to say, which is so fucked up. But like, haha, idiots, it's 21 now, so we look at this and we're like, oh my god, they were stolen away from their gay dads and put with this woman. If they had just been left with their gay dad, then everything would have been fucking fine. Like, that's the read now. I think that I just am so fascinated by how the reading of this movie has changed so much in 38 years, or almost 40 years.
It's really interesting that the filmmaker did not set out to do anything heartwarming or progressive or affirming at all.
Nothing.
But there is so much space left in this movie for really sympathetic readings and portrayals of these characters.
Yeah.
And the trauma that they're experiencing.
Another take that I saw, and I think this was also in Harmony's article. Harmony, you slayed this article. It was so fucking good. It was awesome. But she also made an allegory to this being like a rape revenge kind of movie in a way, where like Angela has been, subjugated and put in this position that she never would have chosen. And now finally she's like getting her revenge for all the people who have screwed her over at the place where, in the location where the original trauma took place. So it has all the more meaning, and I loved that read of it too.
And also so much
it into a good for her movie, or good for them, good for however they
would choose to identify later in life as an adult.
They feel.
It's also so much of the violence against Angela is inherently sexualized, because so much of it kind of centers around revealing what Angela's body might be underneath their clothes, where Artie obviously was planning to molest Angela, and Kenny wanted Angela to get naked and go skinny dipping, and Billy threw a water balloon at Angela, and I do believe she was wearing a white t-shirt in that scene, so that could potentially have been exposing. And Meg and Judy kind of tormented Angela about her body,
and
they
about
threw her in the lake, which is its own separate.
Paul.
Yeah, and about her relationship with Paul. Paul violated some sexual boundaries in a way that I'm sure he didn't think he was violating sexual boundaries, but he certainly was.
Yeah.
And so a lot of that centers around Angela like protecting her body and the discoveries of her body. And so in its own way, in that sense too, it's not just this like forced sexualized trauma of transitioning against your will, it's also protecting your body. And so I think that is also good for her. Good for
them. They're fucking getting that revenge, baby. Love to see it. And they're really good at killing people, I would say. Creative, very innovative. It's great. The bee thing, that took a lot of thought. Boiling someone alive, essentially, genius. Great job. decapitation at the end. That was cool. Wonder how that was
Love
done.
her ability to plan ahead and also her ability to improvise in the moment.
And also love her ability to go fucking feral and growl like a like kind of thing. I love that. I love that for her.
I have been pushed to my limit and now I'm only capable of murder and kissing.
Yes.
Beautiful.
I was also at first, when I first saw that end part where she was petting Paul's hair, I thought she like ate his head off. And I was like, now she's a cannibal. What's happening? I don't think that's what happened, but wouldn't be, you know, either way, good for them.
If that's what she chooses to do, I support her.
For her. It's
we gotta wrap it up.
1 hour and 32 minutes in. I think we already covered how could this be gayer already.
I would like to touch on it really quickly.
Okay, we gotta go through these really, really quickly.
But that brings us to our segments, and as usual, I have now learned we start with could it be gayer? And in a sense, no, absolutely not at all. It couldn't be any gayer than it is. But also, I do think Judy's a lesbian and has some repressed sexuality that she needs to address, and that's why she is overtly sexual in other ways with men. And I also think if Peter is a cisgender man who's been forced to live as a woman, he does seem genuinely into Paul in that sense, and that's also gay representation. But yeah, as it exists, we've already got gay dads, we've already got a trans character, presumably, or at least room for interpretation of a trans character.
There's also readings of Aunt Martha as a potentially trans character.
And that's kind of what I was touching on with the John Waters comparisons earlier too, is so many of John Waters' stars are drag queens. And so that is also really what it felt like was going on in that moment. And I think there is space for that interpretation that like Martha herself could be a trans woman. And that's also why she's like forcing this transition on Angela.
Oh God. Just gets more and more messed
It
up.
sure does.
The deeper you go, the darker it is. But yeah,
we don't need to spend much more time on that segment because that was much of the episode. It sure is gay.
Sure is gay.
And that brings us to where would Matthew Lillard be in this movie?
I don't want him to be in this movie unless he is wearing the dick hugging red short shorts. Oh God, Matthew Lillard, never listened to this episode part.
Okay, hear me out though. I think he would make a great Billy.
Oh,
like he's got that mean boy energy. We get to see him in the short crop top during the 15-minute baseball scene.
That would have made the 15-minute baseball scene worth it.
He's wearing like micro shorts standing on the roof, like
skin tight shirt.
I would like to see it.
I'm in full support.
But also imagine Maddie Lily playing a nice boy and getting to be Ronnie, who comes to Angela's defense 1 billion times throughout the movie until that moment at the end where Ronnie is the character who goes, she's a boy, or whatever he says.
I thought that was Annie who said that.
No, I think it's Ronnie.
Oh.
Who?
You mean Susie?
Susie? Cut that part out.
Also, Matthew Lillard was born in what, like the 1970s? So in 1983, he would have been 13. He could have been a good Ricky.
He should have been Mozart. Oh, kid getting bullied. And you know what? IMDb says the real kid who played that character got bullied on set. So what if we spared them the trouble and Maddie Lily stepped in as a small child to get a little shaving cream to the face, a little booty to the face? You know what I mean? That I think would be iconic.
Amazing.
Oh yeah.
Do you know what I actually want to bring up real quick? Sorry, it has nothing to do with anything that we're talking about, but it is an insane piece of IMDb trivia that I think somebody just made up and put in there. IMDb trivia says that Felissa Rose, who plays Angela, was paid $5 million for this movie.
I saw that.
That is the most insane thing I've ever read. There's no way that's true. I can't find any other mention of that on the internet. The movie only made like $10 million total. I don't know who made that up, but what an iconic practical joke.
She deserved $5 million for what she had to go through. What a fun prank. Oh my God. Okay, well, then it brings us to the dumb bitch. And like, it's kind of a hard one for this one. I guess maybe like a lot of I would put the onus on being a horrible asshole on the camp counselor characters who got over the campers, because you know they're just middle schoolers and they're terrible. Everyone's terrible when they're in middle school. Actually, not everyone. I was a little meek bitch in junior high. But that said, I mean, Artie is up there on my list.
There's
But
Artie.
also
There's
camp
Meg.
owner.
There's Mel. There's Aunt Martha. There is
Martha.
like,
Like, how do you choose?
Well, for me, I think the worst people in this movie are Artie and Martha. And then I think the dumb bitch of this movie is Mel.
Yes.
Because Mel keeps going, Ricky is murdering people just to get back at me. Ricky is trying to sabotage me personally. And it's like, Mel, literally none of this has a single thing to do with you. You are not relevant to the plot.
Mel. It's not about you.
Yeah.
No, okay, yeah. Also, I agree. I think it's Mel because also he's trying to have relations with a 16-year-old girl. So
let's not forget that.
But before that even happens, he is covering up all of these deaths just to save face. He's like, don't tell anyone about this, right? I'm going to pay off the kitchen staff so no one tells anyone about this. And
it sure is a shame that all of these campers keep having to go home in the middle of camp.
It's so weird that they're just going home, you know? I guess they're homesick. No, they're dead.
It's an accident. And it's just like, all right. That it is. But yeah, he's 100% a dumb bitch.
It's Mel.
He's the dumb bitch for so many different reasons.
Yeah.
Including a scene where he wears tall, knee-length black socks with white shorts and a baby blue shirt. It doesn't look good, Mel. Change your outfit.
It does look good, Mel. Come on. Ask Ronnie what's hot. He'll tell you what's hot. Okay, so that brings us to our knives out of fives. And excuse me, Chelsea, would you like to set the scene for us? What did the people think?
Sure would. So interestingly to me, this movie actually performed pretty well in the sense that on IMDb it got a 6.3 out of 10, and on Rotten Tomatoes it has 78% fresh from critics, and then a lower but still fresh rating of 60% fresh from audiences. So that's like, generally speaking, like a pretty good, especially that 78% from critics who like professionally analyze and interpret movies. That's pretty high ranking.
Yeah.
That is actually really good.
Yeah, that's way better than I thought it would be.
Not at all what you would expect from such a film.
Such a film. Okay, well, Sydney, do you want to go first because you'd seen it before and you brought this to the table?
Yeah.
You've had more time to process than the rest of us.
Okay. This movie is objectively bad, but I love it. I love it.
Mm-hmm.
It is a fun rewatch. It is a fun everything. I'm going to give this a 4 out of 5.
Oh.
I've said this throughout this entire episode. This movie is so charming. And the twist is one of the greatest shocking twists of all horror movies. And if you just go in blind, you're just like, what the fuck did I just watch? Like it, and even when you know the twist, it's still a fun watch because then you get to see all of the, like, you get to like know all the fun foreshadowing and like figuring out, be like, oh,
What a beautiful little melody of gasps.
Thank you. So I'm giving this a 4 out of 5 knives.
Okay, yeah. I mean, I watched this movie with you guys last week and I had a fucking blast the whole time. I was not bored. I was not bored at any point. Well, I was bored in the baseball scene. Let's be clear. I was bored. Except everyone looked great in their short shorts, so I wasn't that bored. Comparatively to Friday the 13th, like this was a lot more of a fun ride for me. It doesn't have the same longevity that Friday the 13th has. But you know, maybe that's for the best, or we would have had Angela X in space, you know, like we got.
There are actually a bunch of sequels.
Oh, I know.
There are a bunch
They're
of
just
sequels.
not as they don't go to space.
They
didn't go to it doesn't live as large in the zeitgeist of horror, blah 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 blah. Let's hope I used any of those words right.
I feel like you did.
I think I did. Google zeitgeist. But to be honest, I had a really good time and I was fucking horrified by the end. And I was like, what the fuck are we going to do? How are we going to talk about this movie? This is going to be so hard to talk about. And I read all these articles and like God, talk about mental stimulation. I was just loving reading about this. It was so interesting to see how a movie could start out as like the most problematic thing that I'd seen. When I saw this, I was like, this is so fucking fucked up. Jesus fucking Christ. I said fuck that many times, if not out loud in my head. And then reading it, I was like, wow, okay. Now reading it with context, like there's something to be learned, something to be gleaned from it. If I had done it, I would have done it differently, but then like we wouldn't have this cool conversation. So it's fine. I guess in the end of the day. So it's hard to rate this one, but I'm going to rate it really close to what Sydney did because I did really, really like it, though it does have flaws that were, I'm sure, that's something we didn't talk about, damaging at the time. I feel like this movie at the time was incredibly damaging for queer people and transgender people, because it was just like they did bad things because they aren't like us, they did bad things because they're not cis, you know what I mean? That was like what the moral of the story was supposed to be. So it's damaging, but now we can look at it in 2021 and see it in a different light, and I love that about it. So I'm gonna give this like a 3.89 repeating because I had a great time. All parts of it, I had a great time. But bad, Mr. Director / writer. Don't be such a square. But he's probably dead now.
I don't know. But I would say I also enjoyed watching it with you guys. My jaw was dropped probably for a good 5 minutes after the credits finished rolling, and Sydney was like making fun of me because I was still just like sitting there with my brain whirring away, processing the ending shot of the film in which Angela stands there naked and hisses at the audience. And it did take me a while to kind of come to terms with how I felt about it, and I also feel like it is beautiful the way that it can mean so much to so many people, and the way that you can bring your own lived experience to the art that you consume, and the way art can mean something for you and something else for someone else. But that even this film, which was certainly not intended to be gender affirming for anybody, could be gender affirming for exactly the people that they, in a sense, were making the monster, you know what I mean, I think is wonderful. I think it's not particularly like a well put together movie. I think it is so tonally strange, and the pacing is so strange that we tried to watch another movie afterwards and couldn't make it through for various reasons, but also the vibes were so fucking whack trying to watch another like regular good movie afterwards. The vibes were so unbelievably off, that I think I would rewatch this, but I don't think I could like embrace the rewatchability of it necessarily. But I am so glad that it exists for people who do hold it really dear to their hearts. And so I think I would give it like a 3.75 out of fives. How
knives.
Please help me.
Knives out of fives.
Fives?
Out of
Thank
fives.
you. 3.75 knives out of fives. I needed a handhold in that moment. I don't know why.
There you go.
My brain said, I've worked hard trying to dissect this film this morning. There's nothing left of me.
During your review, I Googled if the director is alive, and he's only like 64. So he is still alive. His name is Robert Hiltzik. I'm sorry that I said that about you, Robert. And just so you know, he produced a movie in 2017 called Toxic Tutu.
Fascinating.
That's what I learned. Anyway, that brings us to the end of our episode on Sleepaway Camp. So next week, we are doing a movie that lies near and dear to Sydney's heart. So please take it away, girl.
Okay, so this is a early 2000s masterpiece. We get hot Harrison Ford. We have hot Michelle Pfeiffer. Ooh. And we have a hot, sexy, young little ghost thing in What Lies Beneath.
Oh my God, this movie. I haven't seen it in fucking years, so I'm so excited to watch it again.
here's the thing. I have tried to watch this movie before because I was like looking for a scary movie at some point. I think I made it maybe 10, 15 minutes in and then was like, nothing has happened and I am bored. And it just like didn't hold my attention. And I don't know if I forgot that it was a horror movie or whatever and was like, this domestic drama has lost my interest. I think I didn't hang in long enough. So I am excited to watch it with renewed vigor.
I respect your opinion, but it's a wrong opinion, and so I'm glad that it's going to change.
Like I said, I haven't seen the whole movie,
And
I can't. It's not fully formed.
It is a slow buildup, but it is worth it.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Oh, I'm so excited. All right. Well, that brings us to the end of our episode. If you liked what you heard, why don't you just give us 5 stars on Apple Podcasts? It would make everyone feel really good about themselves. So consider it. And also, we are growing on social media. We'd love to have you join us on our journey curated by the Chelsea Duff. Follow us on TikTok, Twitter, Instagram at spooky_Tuesday. And we're on Facebook and Tumblr at Spooky Tuesday Pod. And we have a letterboxd now, and we are figuring it out, and we don't know how it works. But I did put in I made a list of all of our episodes that has all of our Knives Out of 5s listed in the description. And so if you want to go back and see what bullshit shit we said, it's just the scores. You'll have to listen to hear the bullshit, but to see the scores, you can go onto our letterboxd, and that's just Spooky Tuesday on Letterboxd. So follow us there, and bye, Spookies.
Hey.
Pull your asunder.
Bye, Spookies.
Spooky Tuesday was created by Monica Height, Sydney Thompson, and Chelsea Duff, and edited by Sydney Thompson. Our gorgeously spooky tunes are all thanks to Tamara Simons, who you can follow on Instagram at Captain Tamara, and our podcast art is by Mary Murphy, who you can find on Instagram at the_moon_OMG.
Guess I gotta go. Well, good night, Angela.
Good night.
Good night.